Tuscaloosa, Alabama, current college football capital of the world. When someone hears Tuscaloosa, they think of the University of Alabama's championship football team and the team's thousands of enthusiastic fans yelling, "Roll Tide!" all under the shadow of the colossal Bryant-Denny Stadium. During the fall, the end of each week marks an epic celebration by local residents and students alike, prompting a citywide party, all in the spirit of cheering on the Crimson Tide. However, there is more to Tuscaloosa than football. The city has accumulated a rich history since its Native American origins and retains the experience and hardships of the past half-century. Honoring the great Native American chief who tenaciously defended his land from the Spanish in 1540, the city's name means Black Warrior. It was at the banks of the modern Black Warrior River that many Native American trails converged at the southernmost point where the river could be safely forded. Nearly 300 years later, Tuscaloosa served as the capital of Alabama from 1826 to 1846 and was nicknamed the Druid City for the many oak trees found in downtown. Though to a lesser degree than its close neighbor Birmingham, where peaceful protesters were sprayed with powerful hoses and arrested en masse, Tuscaloosa had its own special part in the American Civil Rights Movement.
In Tuscaloosa, back then we had no rights at all. No rights at all. Nobody was elected for anything. I mean, it was just no privileges at all. Oh yes, I was involved in all of it. Began to boycott and all these kind of things. People, there was nobody, no cashiers in none of the stores. Nobody had any jobs. Those amazing janitors, and so we began to make demands on the city and people that owned stores that they were hot blacks and whatnot, and we were successful in doing that. We were successful in when the bus coming out of business. Until they hired black drivers, they had to hire two black drivers before we went back to riding the bus. Because majority of people that riding the bus were black anyway. So we shut the whole system down. When I got 21, I registered to vote. But there were very few black people who voted then. Very few.
Even after all that time since the Battle of Mobila, where Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto confronted Chief Tuscaloosa and ousted his tribe, it seemed the white man was at it again. In 1962, with backing from the infamous Ku Klux Klan, segregationist politician George C. Wallace was elected governor of Alabama, and in his famous inaugural speech, he proudly declared his core policy.
I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
Months later, George C. Wallace would make history by guarding the front door of Foster Auditorium at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa in an effort to prevent the first black students from enrolling at the university.
And I've come here to ask you now for an unequivocal assurance that you will permit these students, who after all merely want an education at a great university.
Now you make your statement, but we don't need you to make a speech.
This theatrical stand in the schoolhouse door, as it became known, was a symbolic rejection by George C. Wallace of desegregation. His stand would be in vain, for in the end, National Guard General Henry Graham was ordered to force him to step aside.
I'm General Graham, and it's my sad duty to ask you to step aside under the orders of the President of the United States. As a member of the Alabama National Guard, I've been ordered into the Federal Service from 10:30. It is my duty to ask you to step aside in order that the orders of the court may be accomplished.
As Wallace complied, Vivian Malone and James Hood walked past him into Foster Auditorium and registered as students.
Well, she was attached on the campus, and she was brought down here because she had nowhere else to go. She didn't know anybody else but the gentleman on the building next door over there, which was a Tuscaloosa, Alabama Citizen. It was a newspaper, black newspaper. And she was so messed up when they brought her down here. The state trooper brought her down here. She was full of eggs and whatnot, so they brought her in here because we had a beauty shop. And this is where she was cleaned up at. And a group of men from here took her back to Birmingham.
Today, in Tuscaloosa and many other places, racism has taken quite a different form.
Today's more of an institutional, I guess, prejudice and reaction against someone's skin. So, like, racism would be a policeman targeting me instead of another person if I was doing nothing wrong. I don't know how to define it. It's more of a social situation than anything.
So if I define it in terms of whiteness, most of the times that's going to be, I can't separate it from the privilege that comes with it. I can't separate it from all of the things that that means for me. The cues that it meant for me in terms of getting an education, the cues that it meant for me in terms of advancing, the cues that it meant for me in terms of not being interrogated.
People might behave a different way around someone because of their race, or they might, it's like the classic crossing the street when you see somebody who you think is threatening based on their race. So it's harder to eradicate than, the KKK, because that's a banner and it's a organization and they have a structure and a set of ideals, and that's easy to, judiciate essentially. Whereas now, I think the racism locally is an attitude. It's like something that you don't necessarily overtly act on or say, but it affects how you behave.
Evidenced by mass incarceration, the resegregation of schools, and other disenfranchisement and maltreatment of American blacks, racism is now deeply ingrained in the institutions of America.
And we know that it matters because prisons look the way they do, and schools in Tuscaloosa look the way that they do, and the Voting Rights Act currently looks the way that it does, and communities with illegal practices of toxic waste dumping look the way they do, because race matters at every step in those junctures.
The last time I looked at the demographics, it's pretty close to 50% white, 50% black, and you have an entire side of town devoted just to one single race, and then another side of town devoted to a different one, which is just bizarre to me. That still exists. You still have black schools and white schools, and black businesses and white businesses.
Well, the school system is moving backward, but people don't believe it, they can't see it. They start segregating school again. Unknown to people, haven't realized what was going on, but it's all the schools they label them being failing schools and whatnot, and most of the white people moved from the west side to that side of town. So pretty soon they're going to where you go to school in your area, and that's when people going to come to light. They're going to come to light that it's back again. But all the schools on that side, they're predominantly black, and you have some black kids in schools, but they're very few. Then now all the whites are kind of out of the center. It won't be as bad. It won't be as bad as it used to be, but it's going bad.
Wherever people are governed over in any way, black people and other non-whites are invariably given special treatment. As more unarmed children are shot dead in the streets, Perhaps the subtle racism that once replaced the blatant prejudice of the civil rights movement is now being replaced again by overt physical violence.
But all we're surrounded by are the after effects, the reverberations of everybody seeing color all the time. We're just telling ourselves that we don't see color all the time, right?
Like, especially in the classroom, if I'm the only black person in a 300 level, 400 level class, then either the teacher will completely listen to me and take my perspective into account, or they will completely ignore me, and there's usually no in between.
Perhaps the unrest among blacks in Ferguson, Missouri, is the precursor to a new civil rights movement.
God bless America. Is this our God bless America? He sent his troops. He sent his troops. He sent his troops to kill citizens, to be up our citizens. Is this our God bless America? He sent troops. He sent troops on citizens, on innocent citizens. Is this our God bless America? Is this our God bless America?
Whatever the case, Tuscaloosa, as every other place, must take steps to eliminate race as a deciding social factor. Minor physical differences may be celebrated, but must not become a reason to treat someone differently.
Socially, institutionally, individually, you have to get to a place where race doesn't matter. And of course, then you have to say, what does that look like?
Race is something constructed by man. It doesn't naturally exist. It's more of a social concept defined by the pigmentation of someone's skin.
As a nation, as a world, and as a species, humans must grow beyond their prejudices and work towards the common conclusion of love in all things.